My name's Adele Onyango, and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to episode 324. This is what's coming up in this episode.
So one day I'm driving to work and there's a lorry in front of me and I'm feeling so sad and I'm crying my eyes out, but I can't tell you why I'm crying my eyes out. It's not like I don't have money. Like literally everything is okay. Something tells me just accelerate, hit that car. And I'm just like, yeah, why not? There's nothing to live for anyway. So as I'm accelerating, the Lord uses my son's face to I saw him. I saw my son just like, whoa, what am I doing?
We are finally going to hear part 2 of Nyambura's story. If you've not listened to part 1, please listen to episode 323 or this episode is not going to make sense to you. Welcome to the family. If this is your first time ever listening to this podcast on whatever podcast streaming platform you're listening to this on, because we are literally everywhere, you are welcome. Better late than never. You have clearly over 300 episodes to catch up on. Episodes like this go out every single Monday. On Wednesdays, we have the midweek teas. And on Fridays, we have Ask a Therapist. Make sure you officially join our family on our website. That's legallycluelessafrica.com. Sign up. And don't forget to check out our brand new show for mannerless women on our YouTube channel. In fact, subscribe to our YouTube. There's a link to it in the show notes. If you're an OG member, I have nothing but love for you. Ugh, so much love for you. And we're working on something that could see you and I hanging out in June. All I can say is if you are in Nairobi, please keep June the 7th open because you and I could be kicking it. Like, we could have a date. That's all I'm allowed to say as per now. Back to this episode. If you have PCOS or you're trying to figure out how your periods can be less disruptive, I feel like that's all of us. If you want to know more about perimenopause, which can start as early as 35, if you have or are battling postpartum depression, so if you know any new moms, if you are navigating menopause, you have got to watch the latest episode of For Mannerless Women.
But it's not just an anatomical issue. It comes with a lot of hormonal problems. So women are spotting. Women have issues regulating their weight. Some women get facial hair. And a lot of patients with PCOS get mental conditions, mostly depression or anxiety.
Got it.
And that for me is almost confirming that the hormones and the mind are connected.
Yeah.
So whenever you have a hormonal imbalance, you'll have
the
PCOS.
mind will have some. Yeah.
Even with endo.
Yeah.
A lot of patients with endometriosis will have depression. So those imbalances, with PCOS, I know that once you have treatment for it, because there are many treatment options for PCOS. Some of them actually include hormonal treatments, like just to balance out. Some women don't end up needing antidepressants. Once you correct the hormonal problems, then it's like, oh, okay, I'm okay. So when I see a woman with PCOS or endo, I send them to the gynae first.
To know that will that help?
Help?
Yeah, the mental.
Yeah, because sometimes what happens is a woman comes, she has PCOS and depression, then you put them on antidepressants. But then it kind of never gets better because we've not dealt
with the root issue.
Even with menopause and perimenopause, right? What happens is when women are getting perimenopausal, they might get depression. So sometimes a perimenopausal woman will be depressed and will go see a psychiatrist, and then they'll be put on antidepressants. And they never get better. So they're on antidepressants for life. But then if we did it in the reverse, so you see the perimenopausal woman, you ask questions like, okay, are you, is your period disappearing? Are you having hot flashes? Send them to the gyna, they get their hormonal treatment, and mentally they come up, like they get better.
I love what you're saying because that was my lived experience with my GP. That is Dr. Vundi. She is a psychiatrist and she calls herself the women's psychiatrist because she only exclusively deals with women. So she stopped by our show, and her and I had this fantastic conversation that just made me understand more about how natural things we experience as women, such as periods, perimenopause, menopause, shifts in our hormones can affect our mental health, like seriously affect. And it really helps in knowing, because then you don't shit on yourself when you're going through it. So, for example, let's talk about periods. I just recently came out of my periods, they ended a day ago. And let me tell you, first, before my periods this time around, I had an anxiety attack. It just so happened like life was lifing at the same time my periods were perioding. Well, they hadn't begun, it was the week before that, feels like things are just going downhill slowly. And I had a full blown anxiety attack. Like, not cute. Then my periods came, and during my periods, I just felt, is there a word? Blech. I'd look at myself in the mirror and just be like, ugh, who's this chick? I did not feel motivated for work. We're working on a brand new project, and my goodness, thank God for my team, because I just felt so demotivated. But because I had had this conversation with Dr. Vundi, I was being graceful with myself and I wasn't panicking. I knew my body is shedding hormones. And so I'm not going to be able to. In fact, yeah, another thing that happened is I was finding it so hard to do my morning walks and my morning yoga. So I just kept my walks, but I shortened the time or the sessions that I would do my yoga. And so instead of shitting on myself, because before I had this knowledge, I would just be like, you're being lazy. You said you were going to be starting the morning with exercise. Now look, here you are. But now that I knew exactly how this process, or where I was in my cycle, I was very graceful with myself. I was kind of just saying, we're gonna write this out, and then we're gonna get back to being our normal self, and just that knowledge goes a long way. So I want you to be your sister's keeper. Check out the episode with Dr. Vundi, and then share it with all the women that you know. For a long time, we did not have this information, but now we do. And I love that it's coming from another African woman. Link is in the show notes. And while you're checking out the episode, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right, let's jump into 100 African stories. In this episode, we listened to part 2 of Nyambura's story about her mom leaving when she was 2 years old. We left off with Nyambura being in her 20s, and her mom makes a surprising comeback into her life and visits Nyambura. And Nyambura's son, who's always happy, was screaming his head off as soon as Nyambura's mom showed up. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
I felt so pity for her, because I was just like, first, you don't even get to interact with your grandson. 2, this is a lifetime that you've missed. This is another lifetime that you're gonna miss. 3, you're sick. 4, I don't know where you've been, and unfortunately, I'm not interested in knowing where you've been. It was just so much, but I think the predominant one was pity, and that's why I gave her the gift. It's like, I'm sorry. So we didn't have an interaction for more than, honestly, 15 or so minutes. And then I'm feeling like I'm betraying my dad, because I'm like, he's the one who brought me up. I don't know their relationship. I never asked. But for me, my dad is a stellar parent because my dad stayed with us. He didn't abandon us. And so you coming back to my life, I'm just like, am I now just supposed to accept you? Where have you been all these years? And then what does that mean for my dad? These are children you've brought up. It not him saying, it's me who was feeling. I'm just like, I feel like I'm like betraying my dad. Because he's been the present parent. He's sacrificed. I've seen him, blood, sweat, and tears. I've seen him And I don't know. I don't know. It was very confusing. Very, very confusing. Then now I have a child in the other room screaming. And honestly, and this is such a sad thing to say, when she left is when my son stopped screaming. Speak of energies. I don't know what that was about. I'll never understand what that was about, but it was there and it existed, and I don't know. My mom never ever showed up, not once, to where we were living. For 18 years, I never saw her. Maybe she tried to reach out, I don't know. One of the things she said when she was holding my picture in the magazine, she said, you know, if I didn't leave you, you would have been packing boys and girls. And I think I brushed that off until I explored it in therapy. And for me, and I still honor her because I later came to learn a lot about her life and I honor her as a person. At that point, my mind understood it as a justification for abandonment. It's almost like saying, I'm glad I left you and this is how you've turned out to be. Meaning, if I didn't leave you, you wouldn't have turned out to be this way. It's a little bit twisted, let's be honest. So I don't know if she ever reached out. But not once did we ever see her at the gate. You know, the way parents go and they say, Sitoki hapa, my children are in this house. I don't care. So that the children even have an exposure that there's a parent looking for you. Not once. So who will the child be most appreciative of? The parent who's been there forever. And that for me was my dad, sacrificing his life. My dad would have been, he would have decided to live a different life. But he chose to bring up 5 children by himself, being ridiculed by the society, being isolated by his family, save from one of his sisters and her husband. My dad chose the hard way. He's a sacrificial parent for me. He's an amazing human being. But then I have this mom, my mom, saying, you know, if I didn't leave you, you'd be packing boys and packing girls. I'm just like, yeah, I don't know about that. Oh, so when she came, I felt very compelled to talk to my dad. And I just mentioned it in passing. I can't remember his response, but I remember feeling morbidly like I've betrayed him. I can't remember the response that he gave. And then 2 months later, we get a call. 2 months after she came, I'm still working at the skincare product. So my sister says, oh, your mom has passed on. And I'm just like, well, this one, I detached. I completely detached. So I think I told my dad. I cannot remember how he responded to it. But I did go for the funeral. It was in Nakuru. I didn't even take the whole day off. I took half a day off. I went for the funeral. And I was there, but I wasn't there. So she died of AIDS. I don't hide these things. As I told you, I'm an open book. She died of AIDS, and I cannot remember any emotional experience of that funeral. Even when we were working through this in therapy, there were no emotions that came up. But if you think about it, that's really, really sad. Because when your mom passes, your whole life is upside down. But there was no relationship to mourn. There was no relationship lost. There were no memories to look back to. There were no memories to be created in the future. There was just oblivion. There was nothing. And how do you grieve for nothing? But this is the loss, is that one person's decision affects multiple generations. So I think she has a son. We'll never have a relationship with him. Because where do we begin? We never had a relationship with him, with mom. Where do we begin? I have my own son. Me, I'm fully fulfilled in my own life. Fierce as a mother. My brothers and sisters have their own relationships at that particular point. Dad is okay now. He's trying to live life because now we are grown-ups. We're the ones taking care of him, sending him money, just making sure everything is okay. So this is unfortunately the effect of one decision. And I don't say that as being angry at my mom. No, I forgave her. I have honored her for who she was because I came to learn a lot about her family much, much later. When I was doing my undergrad and we needed to create a genogram, that's when I learned that she got married, I think when she was 16, which was not unusual then. And then her mother died. I never knew my grandmother. Her mother died. And out of 8 children, 7 died before the age of 41. Out of substance use and lifestyle diseases, like, I don't think AIDS is a lifestyle diseases, but high blood pressure, substance use, and AIDS. Out of 8, only 1 is alive. I purposefully, and maybe this is mean of me, but I'm okay with it. I've chosen not to have a relationship with the existing sister, not because she's a bad person. I just don't have the emotional capacity for that. And I'm okay with it. So from the funeral, how does life move on? Imagine I was at the funeral in the morning and the afternoon I was at work. I might seem hard-hearted, and perhaps I am, but it's important we understand that there was no relationship to mourn. And this is a mind warp. Because when people say my mother died, your whole world comes undone. My whole world has always been undone by the neglect my mother has caused by living when I was 2. So I'm already used to that neglect. It's not news for me. And I've already learned how to deal with the emotional neglect. And so when she left, she's like, but she's always left. Does that make sense? She's never been there. So what am I mourning? So I have a funeral in the morning, then I go to work in the afternoon. And this lady, we used to work with her, lovely lady. She pulls me aside. She's like, I thought you said your mother died. I was like, yeah, she died. I thought you said the funeral is today. I said, yes, it's today. She's like, what are you doing at work? I'm like, what would I be doing than working? She's like, but your mother died. I'm like, yeah, but I never knew her. And she's like, what? So like, yeah, my mother left when I was 2. She just looked at me and walked away. So she's like, okay, this is too much. I'm not going into this. Yeah, I could see even my workmates, like I could see them wondering why she looks very okay. I was okay. There was no grief. But that's such a sad thing that there was no grief. And for me, one of the key areas I focus on in my therapy is mother wounds. Because mother wounds are deep, 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 deep. There's a lead psychologist. He says that mother wounds, emotional neglect from mother wounds are the original soul wounds. And that's true. So that even then, that there's nothing to grieve, I have no understanding of how deep this wound is. I'm not understanding that this wound exists so much that it's affecting my relationships at work, that I never had girlfriends, FYI. All my friends were men. All. And then I'm realizing, okay, I'm beautiful, so it's easy to make friends with men, but I'm also oblivious of the intentions. And so I had found a way to live. It's like even my social life is occupied by men friends, and that's just that, men friends, platonic men friends, to be honest. I used to watch football with my brothers. So there's that essence of masculinity that for me is normal, for most girls isn't, and it's quite intimidating. And I've had that a lot. I've been told my face is intimidating. It's my upbringing. See, this wound exists and it's permeating everywhere, but I don't know it exists. And so I'm thinking it's life as usual. So I go on with my career. I work there for 4 years. In 2011, I get another job as a marketing manager for a pharmaceutical organization. That was in 2011. Now, in 2011, things start to fall apart in my life. Then I'm 25. Was I? Yeah, 2010, 2011, I'm 25. In all standards, I should be doing okay. My son is okay. My career is going well. I'm in school. No, I wasn't in school. Yes, I was in school. I went back to school because remember, I left home at 18, so I had to educate myself. I'm in school doing my diploma because I didn't get such good. I got a C minus in KCSE. So I had a certificate. I did a certificate at University of Nairobi, and then now I'm doing my diploma. And things just are starting to break down. But I'm 25, and physiologically, 25 is when the prefrontal cortex is fully formed. And that brings about an identity crisis. So I didn't know I was going through an identity crisis. And then it just hit me, the sadness and the loss and the feeling like I'm unlovable and I'm emotionally broken. It dawns heavily when I'm 25. So much so, it puts me in a deep, dark depression to the point where one day and then I bought my car at 24, and then I started driving at 25. So one day I'm driving to work, and there's a lorry, there's a 814 truck or whatever, these huge ones in front of me, and I'm feeling so sad and I'm crying my eyes out, but I can't tell you why I'm crying my eyes out. It's not like I don't have money, like literally everything is okay. And then I go, something tells me just accelerate, hit that car. And I'm just like, yeah, why not? There's nothing to live for anyway. So as I'm accelerating, the Lord uses my son's face to like I saw him. I saw my son, just like, whoa, what am I doing? And then one of my very lovely, very good friends calls me. And I go to her house. She was living in South P. And I go to her house. And you know the way you're crying, but because I'm so detached, I'm thinking people can't see that I'm crying. So she looks at me and she tells me, come in. Then her cousin was there, and her cousin looks at me and she tells me, quick, call this number. I'm like, why are you asking me to call them? She's just like, just call that number. Whatever you're going through, they're going to help you with it. So I called the number. It was a self-renewing program, which I won't say the name as well. And I go the next, that was on a Monday. I go the next day on Tuesday. And I think this whole Monday, I haven't slept. I can't tell you what's going on. Such a deep, dark depression. So I go on Tuesday, I'm just like, I don't care if I lose my job at this point. And I'm the marketing manager. So I have teams to meet, I have things to do, I have targets. I just like, I just don't care. So I go to this place, this venue, and I see the words Romans 12:2. Do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but renew your minds, and you will learn that God's will is good, perfect, and pleasing. I have never felt home like I felt that day. I have never felt home, warmth, like I felt that day. And I remember looking at that verse and I'm like, how can a good God allow me not to grow up with a mother? The mother wound is up. That's that's been disturbing me throughout. But I'm so detached from it. I'm like, I never had a relationship with her. So there's no way her death could have affected me this much. So I look at that verse and I'm like, God is good. I don't think God is good. I think God lives in heaven, just waiting to punish us. And I don't know what I've done, but me, I've been punished all my 25 years of life. I feel like he's punished me. But that compelling truth of that verse, I think, was the Holy Spirit. And I stayed on and I went every Tuesday. We used to meet every Tuesday. And slowly by slowly, the Lord started coming alive to me. He started showing me his sovereignty, man's responsibility. I started seeing his love even in like the jobs. Because I'm telling you the truth. I would, if my boss is being toxic, I would go for like 2 weeks fasting, praying. And I would pray in the toilet. I'm not even lying. I'd pray in the toilet and be like, Lord, you hear me. But I'm not a believer then. But I somehow knew God would hear me. So anyway, so I did that program for like 12 weeks, I think. But one of the key significant things was in September. So this program, they had like a, I don't want to say like a conference day or so, like a retreat here. And so in that retreat, there was a cross. I'm going. I don't know whatever it is, but I just know every time I come here, the depression is lifting. So she says, tomorrow next week there's gonna be a retreat. It was on week 8. This is gonna be a retreat, and I want you guys to get a small green book and write everybody's names that you need to forgive. The thing with trauma, it keeps you loyal. So me, if you tell me do this, and that's how I got ahead in my career, I'm gonna do it so well, because I'd stuck in Makelele, and I'm also very hardworking. So I went, got the green book without question. Got the green book, and I started writing. I had so many people to forgive. I think my mom was there. So in this day, you're supposed to take that green book and burn it. She lit a fire above the cross. I've never cried like that. I cried. I'm just like, why am I crying? So now this is the detached part, but then there's another part that is coming alive. And it's a funny thing because I think my brain knew this is what is hurting, but my brain also knew I was helpless against that wound. So it's going to keep me from processing it. Because to correct it is to go back and have a relationship. But she's dead. And I can't blame her. But I'm also, if I show anger, it shows that I cared. And I don't want to show that I cared. And it also shows, which is very scary, my decisions were not the accurate decisions of having a baby by myself. So my brain is going to put me from all this because a realization is like, oh my gosh. So all my decisions have been made from this point of neglect. And then I'm responsible for it, and I don't want to be responsible for it. So the detachment makes sense. I think that is when I got born again. Because the next day, I kid you not, I saw angels, and I had angels praising over me. I kid you not. I woke up and I'm asking people, are you hearing people singing? They're like, no. I'm just like, but people are singing. I can hear them. And I'm seeing these angels singing. And I knew they were singing for me. And I've never felt so loved by God's love. I don't want to dare, but I've gone through some pretty difficult things in my life. I want to believe, and I believe nothing can take away God's goodness from me. Because I've experienced it He's allowed me to experience it in a very deep-rooted way. I'm saying my life is perfect. I'm just saying, even in the pits of pits, I will still sing of God's goodness and God's mercy and His grace and of Christ's love forever and ever. That's what that ceremony did to me. It's like, oh my gosh, God is good. He really is good. And that was the first power of healing from that psychological wound. From that mother wound. That's what it did to me. And so I came home and I gave away everything that reminded me of my life before being born. I gave away my clothes, I cut my hair, I moved houses. My relationship with my son really flourished. It was such a 180. I started having healthy relationships with girls and women. I started having good bosses. I started just progressing in my career again and again and again. And that was in 2011. Now, in 2012, I was the regional brand manager of another company. So I was in charge of 4 countries. Again, that just came from prayer and fasting still. I was in charge of 4 countries. And so now I'm feeling things are getting better. Like, that's when I said being alive, when I was 26, because I've been in the faith for the last 14 years. Then I started looking for a church. A former friend invited me to the church that I go to now. So I started going to that church, and just things started becoming great. Now, that was 2012. In 2015, 10 years ago, so literally from being born again to 2015, life was quiet. It was just me growing in the faith. People saw the difference, and I thank God for that. And now I'm fellowshipping and I'm founding my faith in Christ, like very, very deeply. So it was a very quiet period. I thought the wound was gone. 2015, I got another job. I'm in charge of same countries, but at a pharmaceutical company. And I'm just sitting in the office and I thought, then I was 30. I thought, okay, I'm content as a 30-year-old now, but I know, and I think this is God's spirit, I know that 10 years from now I would be the same place. I'm not going to be as active. I'm not going to be 30. I'll be 40. And I thought the Lord reminded me, you don't want to be 40 going for interviews with 20-year-olds looking for marketing jobs. And so I'm like, okay, what is this that I've always wanted to do now that I have the time and even the financial resources? What is this thing that I've always wanted to do? I'm just like, okay, psychology. That day I enrolled for my psychology degree. Then I already had my first marketing degree. So that day I enrolled for psychology in counseling. But then I thought, okay, I don't want to go into counseling. What I want to do is, before counseling becomes a thing, I want to combine consumer and psychology. So I thought I want to do marketing, consumer psychology in marketing. So I still wanted to be a marketer, but I wanted to understand how the brain works. So I started school. Hey, when I started school, at a certain semester, we were supposed to do our genograms. A genogram is like a family tree. Now that's where the wound flared up again. So I was like, and then you're supposed to present it to the class. So I'm like, wow, okay. So now we're back at this again. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, who do I ask? I'm gonna ask my sister. She's always had a relationship with my mom. So I learned that when she was growing up, my mom's dad, who would have been my grandfather rather, was quite chauvinistic. Of course, it's Uko in the 50s, 60s, maybe even 40s. Understandable. So he had four boys and 4 girls. All the boys were educated, the girls were discriminated against. And my mom was the second last one, I think. And because of the discrimination, and I'm putting it very lightly, I learned that they went through a lot of abuse. A lot. Physical, verbal, maybe even financial, I don't know. So my mother was a child of abuse, raised by her mother alone. Because there seems to have been a conflictuous relationship between the father and the girls. So that's the information. And then when she was 16, because of how much they had gone through, they found, I don't know how my mom and my dad met, I've never asked, but my dad was financially okay. And for her, it was a safe haven to get married, but she was getting married at 16. Not an uncommon thing then. From there, I don't know what happened. There's a lot of things that are not said, but one of the things that I think happened was, I think she went into a deep depression when her mother died. And maybe having 5 children to take care of was too much. As a young mother, I don't know. So that's what was like, okay, well, this is an unfair situation to be at. And so I started putting myself in her shoes. I'm like, okay, if I'm 16 and I've come from a place, an environment where there's very clear discrimination between the boys and the girls, and we haven't been educated, I possibly would get married as well because it's a safe haven. And if I'm coming from that environment and my mother is a safe parent and I lose her, I possibly would make the same decision if I'm looking at it from a humanistic point of view. And I think that's where now my healing started. Was when I started to see her as a human being, I was like, well, makes sense. Didn't take away the pain or the hurt. The hurt is still there even today. There's some wounds we will live with. For me, I've agreed this is one of the wounds that I will live with. And when I presented it to the class, and there was a lot of silence because everyone's like, dysfunctionality. I'm like, yeah. One of the things that I will never try to show is that I come from, I will never show you a side of me that's not me. I'm that black and white. So even when I'm talking to my clients, I tell them, I come from a highly dysfunctional family. Don't feel like you're the only one. But we don't have to be slaves to our dysfunctionality. There are things we can learn and do differently so that we don't pass them over to our children. Coming from a dysfunctional environment, the quick thing to do is honestly seek professional help. I'm not limiting it to professional help, like trying to just say therapy is the only. I'm limiting it to professional help because with a professional, they'll be able to help you understand what happened to you and what continues to happen to you as a result of what happened to you. Understanding the way the brain works, understanding the trauma response, like detachment that has plagued me all my life. It's actually therapy and faith that has now helped me to be very intentional in who I am today. So the first step is to seek professional help. If you cannot afford professional help, which is completely understandable, seek online professional help. There are many therapists who share tips and tales of how to go about such dysfunctional families. But for me, I just want to remind anyone who's listening, your dysfunctionality or your history or your past experiences, they don't have to shape who you are today and subsequently who you'll be in the future. There's hope. If you want to get me on IG, it's _therapist KE. So _therapist KE. Oh gosh, we're doing so well. My son is going to uni next year. My son is going to uni next year. I am starting my PhD soon. And the Lord is still ever so good to us. Yeah, and I'm still a believer. That one I'm gonna hold on till my death. Yeah, I'm still a believer. So I rethought that. I didn't think I wanted to get married, in all honesty. In 2020, I got married, but it was an abusive marriage, unfortunately, in the hands of another Christian. Go figure. But this time, by God's grace, I was able to leave that situation. So I left an abusive marriage 10 months after being married. Didn't even get to the first year anniversary. So yeah, when the physical abuse started, it happened 3 times. I had to go to hospital once. I left by God's grace, and the Lord provided literally every single thing in our house now. Every single thing the Lord provided through friends. I had my lovely friend. Oh, she's so amazing. One day just woke up and told me, I think God wants me to give you 80,000. She sent me 80,000. The Lord enveloped us, my son and I. Sad thing is I lost over 150 friends within the Christian community. I don't think those friendships will ever be the same again because I've changed a lot. But yeah, I left an abusive marriage and I'm very, very thankful to the Lord for that. Yeah. So left after 10 months, was separated for a year, and then my divorce was finalized in 2022. Yeah. Now I'm single, taking my time, bringing about change, and in a very deep-rooted change, both spiritually and also both psychologically. I know for me, the Lord has given me a gift of healing through bringing about awareness and helping people understand psychologically who they are, and subsequently getting out of psychological situations that keep them stuck. But we are flourishing. My son and I, oh my gosh, oh wow, we are flourishing. But all by God's grace, by His goodness, by His mercy, by Christ's love, we are flourishing.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. Whew, what a powerful story. It's incredible how the things we experience that we think are going to completely destroy us actually lead us to our passion. I mean, I'm not trying to invalidate the sad or heavy feelings that come with the challenges we navigate in life, but I find it to be interesting that those things are the same ones that guide us to our passion points. Well, I think that happened with Nyambura. And when I reflect on my own life, definitely happened with me. Another thing that this story reminded me of is that we don't often talk about mother wounds. Some time back for group therapy, I think it was last year or the year before, we had one group therapy session that was specifically on mother wounds, and we had another group therapy session that was specifically on father wounds. I thought the father wounds group therapy session would be packed. But you know which one was packed? Mother wounds. And it just really was an awareness to me that this is an issue we don't talk about. There's so much shame. You almost feel guilty for talking badly about your mom, even if she abandoned you, even if there was abuse. You know what I mean? You don't want to talk about. And also, there's just so many people who are so loudly talking about how awesome their mothers are. You don't know where to voice your experience if that wasn't the case for you. You know what I mean? So this Wednesday, I will definitely talk more about mother wounds in the Midweek Tease. That is our show that goes out every Wednesday. So again, make sure you subscribe to whatever podcast streaming platform you're listening to this on so that you don't miss out on that. Lastly, I want to know, what did you connect with in Nyambura's story? From part 1 to part 2, drop it in the comments. I love hearing from you. Thank you so much for being part of this family. I really appreciate you. And I believe you have everything it takes to heal. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.